So I think that's, and Bernice has got a doctor's appointment today, I think. So we have quorum, so we'll call the meeting to order. And I'll turn it over to Ellen.
Yeah, so I have Angie and Colton in as well. So I thought, I believe the information that Joanne Clower sent out on Friday, and Margaret's printed that. And in addition to the request for decision, so if possible, I was thinking we could work with both of those documents. There is a letter drafted up based on the request for decision, and I thought we could add Joanne's comments in there. I talked with Councillor Booth this morning, and she's in support of the letter or the information that was in the request for decision, in addition to Joanne's comments as well. So the way I see it, and I'll let Colton and Angie just step in wherever. Oh, yeah, I guess you should approve the agenda first. But.
I'll move adoption of the agenda as presented.
All in favor? Okay. I don't have the agenda in front of me, but I'm thinking.
Only the one item on there, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, there it is. Okay. Adoption agenda, review of the MGA. I'll let Ellen start.
So in regards to the comments that Joanne has that are printed out in front of you, the first comment I think should be in the letter is there's limited opportunity for public consultation and input. There should be a statutory public consultation and hearing process in the development of the interim growth management plan, the growth management plan, and servicing plan. Any concern with that?
No.
Okay, point number 2, despite the fact that the province is moving ahead with an interim growth management plan, neither the growth management board regulation nor the MGA provisions mention an interim growth management plan. What is the intended scope and authority of the interim growth management plan?
Ben?
Yeah, when the province put us in here, and we're in it, and we're going through all this, one of the things that they had written into the agreement was that Calgary would still maintain, that was one thing the province mandated, that they would still maintain their veto vote or whatever, silent, whatever the hell, it's not called a veto vote, it's called, what the hell are they calling that?
Double majority.
The double majority vote that they have, that's still in there, that Calgary still maintains that control?
That's still in there. That's one of the comments. I think it's comment 14 out of the 50-some comments. So, and I know when I went through these things that Joanne has set out there, I agree with most of them. The only thing is that they really don't, as long as Calgary maintains that majority vote, there's not a hell of a lot. That's one of the comments that's in here that will be in the letter, yeah. So the next one, let's go back to the request for decision, point number 1. Definition of the Calgary Metropolitan Region of the regulation on page 2. The definition, as noted in section 1C, states that the Calgary Metropolitan Region means the lands lying within the boundaries of the participating municipalities. This is incorrect, as it implies that the entirety of Wheatland County geographical area is within the Calgary Metropolitan Region. Staff recommends that the definition should note, or portion thereof, after participating municipalities. When looking to the definition of growth plan under 1E, page 2, this is incorrect. Definition of the Calgary Metropolitan Region, then it inadvertently requires the entirety of Wheatland County to fall within the Integrated Growth Management Plan. In short, the definition of Calgary Metropolitan Region needs to be clarified. And in addition, I think we should add Joanne's comments under point 3, which say, consider Calgary Growth Metropolitan Region means the lands or portion of lands as prescribed in Section A or Schedule A of this regulation, which are located within the boundaries of the participating municipalities. So just add that on to that point. Okay, the next one is on the request for decision, point number 2. Definition of recreation corridor, section 1I of the regulation on page 2. This definition is far too narrow in scope, as it states that recreation corridor means a corridor with varying width where one or more trail recreation activities occur. From a planning standpoint, staff has concerns with this definition should include other forms of recreation, allow for recreational nodes, and expand beyond merely trail activities. Any concern with that comment or comments? Okay, I'll continue on. Point number 4 on Joanne's comments. Section 2, subsection 5. If the intention is that meetings can be conducted by way of alternative electronic communication facilities, akin to Section 199 of the Municipal Government Act, the provision should be more clearly drafted to reflect that intent, i.e., if the representative of a participating municipality is unable to attend a meeting of the board in person, the board meeting may utilize electronic or other communication facilities to permit the representation to participate in the municipality or in the meeting. Representatives participating in a board meeting by means of electronic or other communication facilities are deemed to be present at the meeting. So that's our ongoing concern with attending these meetings that don't represent any interest for Wheatland County. It's a huge cost to the county to attend these meetings. And if you don't attend a meeting, you're considered to be voting in favor of it. And they can add things to the agenda at the meeting, which has happened in the Capital Region Board. So that's another concern that we have. So that, I think, addresses that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So this is, hopefully they'll permit this, and then we could communicate with them at the office rather than having to drive into Calgary or wherever the meetings are always at. So, point number 3 in the request for decision would be next. Section 3, subsection 1B, and section 3, subsection 1E, page 3. These sections state that the board shall promote the long-term sustainability of the Calgary metropolitan region, and section 3, subsection 1E states that the board shall promote the economic well-being and competitiveness of the Calgary metropolitan region. These are very broad statements with no definitions for sustainability or economic well-being to refer back to. Furthermore, it notes competitiveness, yet it is unclear who the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board is competing with.
Just excuse me, Alan, that, what you're reading from, is that on the computer, or? I don't have a copy of that in front of me. This letter, yeah, this one here?
Yeah, so it's page 2 on the top.
I just swiped it from Rex's side. Page 3, I only got 2 pages. Oh, this one here. Sorry about that. Yeah. Don't have it.
We've got half of it. We've got half of it. We go from 2 to 9. We miss.
Yeah.
They don't have the even
Yeah.
We got the important stuff. You got the garbage.
Sorry. I think it's just because I sit next to Margaret, so she probably talks first, right? So the question is competitiveness, right? Why is competitiveness in there? What would be the purpose of competitiveness?
Yes, through the chair, I think that a couple of problems that staff were having was what's the definition of competitiveness? Who are we supposed to be competing with within that plan area? And everything that I've heard through the workshops I've been to has been that we're not supposed to be competing, we're supposed to be collaborating. So that's why the confusion has come for myself, Colton, and Alan as we discuss this, that we want to make sure that we're clearly understanding that. Are we now being asked to compete with each other, such as foothills, et cetera, or are they talking competing outside the plan area? And again, I thought we were supposed to be collaborating and not competing.
So would the recommendation be to change the word to collaboration then. So if it would be that promotes economic well-being and collaboration instead of competitiveness. So did we write that in? No. You're asking the question.
We're just asking the question, what are they meaning by this? Is it a typo? Because they have made some typos. They missed High River in the plan, by the way, which is a major typo. So we're not sure if it's a typo or if this is their intent, and what's their real intent, I guess.
So that would be a word change, right?
I guess just a note to that, when this all started, one of the points the minister kept bringing up is that municipalities are competing against each other, and that's not good. And now it's in the plan that you got to compete. So, yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that they say that, and then the province supports Edmonton and Calgary
Yeah.
in a competition to attract
right.
Amazon to this province. I mean, that really doesn't show their commitment to non-competitiveness and
That's
collaboration.
right, yeah. I'm just going to call a short break.
Mr. Chairman, we're on page 2 of the letter that we drafted up on last week, or the request for decision. And point number 4 would be next. Section 3(2), subsection E, page 4. This section notes that in fulfilling its mandate, the board shall further develop and implement policies for the sharing of costs for regional projects of the Calgary metropolitan region. This statement is very general, and it is unclear how these costs will be shared. Will they be proportionate to a municipality's population within the board? Question mark. If proportionate, will the Wheatland County share be proportionate to the population within the roughly plus or minus 87,000 acres within the Growth Management Board, or the entire county's population? Okay.
We should, asking them, we should be telling them. The chair that asking, whether they're asking them, we should be telling them that that's all we will accept is what's within that boundary.
Yeah, we can add that onto that comment.
Yeah.
That's not a problem, if you'd like to add that.
Instead of asking them, because here we're asking if that's what they mean, we should be telling them what we interpret it as, and that's what we'll accept.
Yep.
Certainly add that on the bottom, we will only accept, for sure.
Yeah.
Brenda?
So on that note there as well, even though, I guess Mike and how they can twist and turn it is Strathmore's within our county as well. So every municipality, they have no clause in there that would be included within our, you see what I'm saying? Like Strathmore is within our municipality. So is there something that clearly defines that other entities within our county are not classed in with us? Do you know what I mean by that? So you're talking population. Yeah, but you're talking population here, so based upon the service area for the area, and you talk about Wheatland County, our portion should be based upon our population. But what if they decide to say, well, Strathmore's in that specific corridor as well, so that population will be added into that as well? That's what my question is. Is there anything in there to say that they have to stand on their own?
Yeah, the only thing that really clearly identifies that is in the regulation. It clearly states by municipality. So it clearly defines every municipality separately, except for High River, which was missed in there. So we wouldn't be lumped in with Strathmore, and Strathmore wouldn't be lumped in with us. The fact of the matter is, the 8,800 people in Wheatland County are not represented in this area. It's only about 1,400. Is that about what it is? It's about 1,400 people in that area. So if it's by population, then it should be represented by a population of 1,400.
Yeah.
If it's by individual municipality, If we get one vote, then I guess we have to pay a tenth of the cost. That was been suggested.
Very much.
So the issue is that the Growth Management Board, or this board, will set those parameters. And one municipality has total control over that process. It always comes back to that same thing.
Right.
If everybody was treated equally, it wouldn't be a problem, because I think it'd be easy to work out. But if Calgary says, no, we want 1/10 from Strathmore, 1/10 from High River, 1/10 from Wheatland County, then we're going to be paying a huge cost for something that has no benefit to this county.
And I think, again, we put in the clause in the bottom, the same as the other one in there, that we will only accept that within that defined zone, not within the true boundaries of Wheatland County. And you got to remember that throughout all this, and yes, it's a different mandate, but even under the Calgary Regional Partnership, everybody paid a membership, except Calgary. They paid, they only paid, they were capped at, I can't remember what the number was, but every municipality paid per cap. Calgary didn't, and yet they have all the control.
You want a comment added to this saying that we will only accept representation of that population within that area
Within that
when it
described-
comes to paying any fees, charges, levies, anything like that?
Because there's no way in,
It does also say in the regulation that only matters that pertain to the municipality you would pay for, but it's not really defined, real clear.
I know, but to me, there's inside voice only, please. It's not realistic to have the members of this municipality that are living on the east side, down towards Bizano, through Hazara, up through Dalman, that whole area, paying for services that they will very likely never use. That's why you've got to define it to that specific area.
So just to clarify that for Margaret, so what you're suggesting is to add a comment that says cost sharing will only be represented for that population within that area, and only if it's a benefit to Wheatland County, correct?
Careful, only if it's a benefit to the residents within that.
Okay, within that region,
You
yeah.
say if it's a benefit to Wheatland County. then-
Yes, okay, yeah. Within that portion, what's included in there, okay. Because we need to clarify that too, because I don't think that Wheatland County should be paying for something that benefits Cochrane, or vice versa. Within that portion that's represented in the board, yeah.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Alan, can I just bring to your attention that that may cause us a bit of a problem, actually, because I thought the minimum requirement for population to be in this growth management board was 5,000.
No, that's not correct. In the regulation, it says 5,000, urban, rural, there's no definition on population, because I've asked municipal affairs about that many times. It's identified in the Municipal Government Act. Nice try. Because Lamont County is in the Capital Region Board, and they're less than 5,000. So there's an example of where there's another one. So is there anything more on that comment?
How are the costs shared in the capital board, or they haven't been hit with the costs yet?
The province of Alberta, I believe, has been paying most of that, the
Yeah.
$3 million. Now, the province of Alberta has clearly stated in a couple of meetings that I've been at, within 5 years, they want to pay nothing towards this.
Yeah.
And there was a comment made at a meeting few months ago about this interim growth management plan, that they were going to split the costs 10 ways. So I don't know what that means. That means because you're a member, you pay 1/10. I don't know if I agree with that, but anyway, I think that's clearly stated in there. It should only be based on population, and it should only be based on the population that's in the proportionate area, and only if there's a benefit to that proportionate area. Anything else on that?
Has the area been established, like we had two maps? One was 21 west, and then here's the dogleg one. Is there a permanent area established yet?
Yeah, so when the regulation came out, it not only missed High River, it also had two written descriptions of Wheatland County, and they didn't correspond. So it has been confirmed that the full portion that's on our website that I sent to every one of the councilors, that is the proportion that the municipal affairs is including in that area.
Go ahead.
So looking at the map, because there's been, I mean, when we made the suggestion to do the corridor, I guess after looking, I got to look at the map here, but after looking at the map, they chose it or did we choose it? Because for me, I think that that's way too much.
This is not one of the options that we presented.
No.
We presented an option was considerably smaller than this area.
So for me, the map doesn't read right. I want to change the map. Yes. And the comment for me is that the area has not been approved. I would say that we haven't approved an area, which we haven't. We have not approved this particular area that they've presented to us. So I think that map should change. The corridor should be less.
I know what you're saying, and I agree with you, but I think we've got to be cautious, because remember, when we first went in, we were basically the 21 Highway West.
No, it was the whole county first.
Well, at first, and then we got them down to 21 West. We've got them down to this size of corridor. If we keep pushing them, are they going to go back and say, no, it's not up for the, because they're mandating it. Are they, how far do we push them before they say, nope, you're all in?
Their specific interest is their water line. Their water line that comes out to Strathmore and Strathmore. And so
No, their
for me, that
specific
could,
interest is that, the west area, that industrial park.
bingo. So I'm surprised because the other thing is our purpose is to remain agricultural. And so for me, that would be a claim that I would like to see some of the agricultural lands not included. As a preservation of agricultural lands, they don't need to be in the Calgary Growth Management Board. So I would make that statement to them. So I don't know what staff's opinion is or you guys, but you know what? That's a lot they're taking up. I would like a reduction of the farmland that's put in there. Sorry, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, we heard it. I guess for me, if you read the Calgary's strategy, they're all in favor of preserving farmland. That's their number one thing. Their goal is, we all know, is different than ours. For Wheatland County as a whole and into the future, our priority would be to remove the industrial area out of that. And I'm thinking that's why we're in it, because we have it. We can certainly, if council's in favor of adding a clause in that the area is too big, we can certainly add it in. But I don't think we'll get that industrial area out. I think that's the important area for sure.
Well, the highway corridor, I think, is what they're looking at as well, right?
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
what they
I think
want.
they're trying to prevent gasoline alley and those kind of things and head it into their town. That's an issue in other parts of the province, but I do think that we have too much of our farmland, so I would like to see a smaller map.
We can put that as a general note, maybe as another point. And I've been thinking in the back of my mind where we could add a statement such as in Alberta, the democratic process, people are giving votes by the population. You don't get an extra vote because you have more land or more money or more prestige. You're given a vote because you're one person. And that would answer our population thing, how much we pay and stuff like that too. So keep that in mind. At the end, maybe we can make a couple extra statements, one on the area's too big, one on population is by proportion to people actually living and not land mass. And if there's anything else that comes up, I'm thinking add it as a point after what we have here.
So, through the chair, I agree with everything you're saying, but it still goes back, in close votes where Wheatland County plays a decisive role, will our vote be discounted by other members? It'll only be discounted by Calgary if it isn't agreeable to Calgary, and it won't matter how close the vote is. If Calgary doesn't agree with it, it's not going to happen. Edmonton proved it at Beaumont. They just pulled it on Beaumont. They did exactly that at Beaumont and shut down what they were doing up there. So it really doesn't matter how it's set up. Calgary doesn't agree with it. It isn't going to happen.
I guess I'm looking just south of Cheadle, for example. And basically, straight south of Cheadle, all the way down the 24, is essentially all big farmland. And so my question is why is that particular farmland put in there? It wants to remain, and chances are it'll be farmland forever, so, but I just look at that and I think, fine, if you want to do a thing around Eagle Lake so that they figure that that's going to be a growth node, then come out narrow and go do an L and make sure that it's a corridor that we want, not what the Calgary wants.
Mr. Chairman, that was the proposal that was sent, as you know, to them as an option. They've chosen this one, so I hear you 100%. What you're suggesting is you want the area reduced, reduce the amount of farmland in that portion, and Margaret's got that in there. We'll add that in the letter.
And ask for that, not because we just want to say no to them. We want to keep our farmland. We wanted it as part of the growth management board.
Okay, move on.
Hopefully it works.
Any other comments? Okay, move on, Alan.
Okay, point number 5 from our legal counsel, Joanne Clower. Section 3, within the board's mandate should be some indication that it is to operate fairly, i.e. new section 3.3 she's proposing that says the board shall fulfill its mandate, carry out its duties and functions, and make all decisions in a fair, consistent, and transparent manner without prejudice, discrimination, or preference to any municipality, regardless if the municipality is urban or rural municipality. And that's already been set with this interim growth management plan that we were at a meeting, Angie and I were at a meeting a week or so ago, and most of the municipalities are suggesting we're just going to move ahead with this without any public consultation, which I don't think we agree with that. And I know that Rocky View County doesn't agree with that, and Foothills doesn't agree with that, but what they do in Calgary, I guess, is they don't consult with people. So I guess that'll be on the public record, but I don't think we can support that. So that's exactly what's transpiring. So it's very important. So that would be the next comment. And then the next comment after that would be back to the letter that the county drafted. Section, or point 5, which says section 5.1, 5.2 on page 5. This section outlines the voting rights of representatives sitting on the board. In close votes where Wheatland County plays a decisive role, will our vote be discounted by other members due to the fact that only a portion of the population is in the board, and therefore we should not have a full vote? The voting structure is also a concern due to the increased power of municipalities based on population and existing services connections, interconnectedness between municipalities closer to Calgary, who may be influenced by other mechanisms. And then I think we need to add Joanne's comment under section 3.1F that says, oh no, that's not right. So this one here is the one that kind of talking about in regards to interconnectedness to municipalities and that. So that's the next comment.
So when I read that, I've been here too long because I keep going back to, but the reason we're in here with all our arguments to the province to not be in this growth management, what's the one reason we're in here? And they told us that Strathmore's in, you are in. You have no option. So our vote isn't going to mean a hell of a lot anyway. If it's a regional issue and Strathmore votes in the positive for it, doesn't matter how we vote, it's going to happen. Because we're in here for one reason only, is to accommodate the wishes of Strathmore being tied to that Calgary Metropolitan and the whole process up there. So you can play with words all you want. That's where it's going to end up. I don't know how you change that with putting something in there that protects us. nice, it sounds good, but
I don't think it's going to change anything. It just provides some clarity for when the question does come up. I agree with you, Ben. It's not going to mean anything if we got a full vote or a 1/10 of 1% of a vote. Yeah.
it should, in reality, if it benefits Strathmore, it should benefit us. It should. If things work the way they should work, if it's a benefit, because our ratepayers use the town of Strathmore. Ratepayers within that boundary use it, so if it's a benefit for them, it should be a benefit to us. But if it isn't going to really matter.
Brenda?
So we're on number 6, and I'm looking at number 7 with regards to the access for participation of non-members. And I'm speaking to yours with regards to Strathmore. So why couldn't they develop policy of us being a non-member? And try the policy on us to be a non-member, do you know what I mean? And that we can participate but be a non-member. I know, but we're
They
not going to
don't.
anyways. We don't have the voting, we don't have anything.
I think the non-members are supposed to be looked after by the surrounding municipality.
Well,
And
according
that'd
to
be
this,
worse, I'm thinking.
They're going to develop policies allowing for participation of non-members.
Yeah, so there is no policy on non-members yet.
No, but why not ask us to be the non-members and write our policy for us?
And have Strathmore tell us what we're going to do and vote for us? Because that's what's happening to the non-members now. Black Diamond is a non-member, and they have to rely on Rocky View to look out for their interest is the last thing. Our Foothills. Foothills to look after their interests. So you're proposing that we become a non-member and have Strathmore look after our interests?
Well, we don't want to be a member.
Yeah,
That's what our initial goal was, is that we didn't want to be in this.
right.
Sorry, the initial goal was that we didn't want to be in the CRP.
That's right.
So, I mean, if you're looking at options to continue that, that would be one of them, right? So I'm just suggesting that that's another reason not to be a member, right? And a reason to be a non-member. And if we don't want to be a member, it doesn't matter, Strathmore will be looking after our interests anyways. It's regardless.
I've never thought of being a non-member, but for me, I think being a non-member and having not only Calgary dictate what goes on, but have Strathmore be the one that would vote for us, I would think that would be just a little bit deeper in the hole.
So you've changed your mind, then we need to be part of this then.
I don't think you can change your mind. Black Diamond wants in and they can't get in.
I think what's happening is we have an area that's going to be mandated in, whether it's the size it is now or smaller or bigger, it doesn't matter. The government will mandate us in, and already said that. If we're mandated in, then we need to be able to sit at the table and have a vote.
Yeah.
We can't go in as a non-member and not be able to vote. You may as well not go to the meeting if you don't have a vote, you may as well not be there.
No, but as a non-member, they take the corridor out too. They wouldn't have all this stuff.
Oh,
in the
no.
corridor.
They
Oh, yes, they
didn't.
would.
No.
Because they'd have to set the policy, you follow under the policies of the.
They won't take the corridor out. They've already said that. We are going to be in there under one mandate or another.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Everything okay with number 5 then? Just the clarification of, is what I'm thinking though, that is. Anything else? Okay, Ellen, move on then.
So Joanne's comment, point number 6, the regulation should define public participation with respect to both the growth management plan and servicing plan, i.e. what level of public consultation is required. Is a statutory public hearing required? We have to keep in mind that this regulation and this plan sits above all of our other plans. So when Wheatland County does a municipal development plan, or an ASP, we do public consultation. And the province suggested at the meeting we were at a couple of weeks ago that there was no public consultation required in this, even though it sits 3 levels above that. It's totally absurd as far as I'm concerned. So that's why that comment's in there. The next comment, will the municipalities utilize mediation or other dispute resolution tools in the development of the growth management plan and servicing plan to resolve issues? And that's, again, another one that's been clearly stated. There's no method of appeal or resolution on these types of processes, which, again, is totally absurd as far as I'm concerned. Point 8 on Joanne's comments. And what is the cost-sharing allocation formula? We've kind of talked about that again. Well, for the county, is it done on a per capita basis? The population should be limited to the portion of the county that's included in the CMR. I think the county should strengthen its position statement on the point by being clear that in the interest of fairness, any contribution from the county must be limited to the portion of land located within the CMR. So exactly what Councillor Armstrong talked about in that comment. The next one, number 9, under Joanne, sorry.
Rex has got a question.
When you were saying proportionate to the amount of land, I think we had 2 comments there. One was in regards to whether it be population or land-based, correct? So the comment about being proportionate to the amount of land, I don't know if I would agree with that or if I would want that. I think we're more in danger of being more on the hook according to our land base rather than our population base. What do we have, 8,700 people in Wheatland County, and then how many acres are we talking? How many acres is the city of Calgary? So I want to be careful of that comment.
Yeah, the way it's written is any contribution from the county must be limited to the portion of land located in that, not based on that. So we can reword that a little bit so it's clear. That's not what she's saying. She's not saying base it on your land mass. She's saying base it on population, but only that portion that's in that. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So we'll do a little bit of wordsmithing on that to correct that, so it's clear.
Good catch.
Point number 9 under Joanne's comments. While this point has been previously raised and ignored by the province, some considerations. A, should the weighted vote system apply to all decisions, or are there decisions where a simple majority or special majority vote would occur without regard to the 2/3 population? B, the voting system should reflect population and land base, i.e. require support from 2/3 of the representatives from participating municipalities that collectively have at least 2/3 of the population and 2/3 of the land base in the Calgary metropolitan region. If the county is going to be a member, its representative vote needs to count the same as any other. I think one of the other comments that's not in here that just came to my mind that's been brought up before in regards to this is if the board is putting a mandate on a municipality, they should have a right of veto on that. We've talked about that before, right? And I know that both Ben and Glenn has supported that when we've talked to the government on that. So what that means is if Calgary is saying, Wheatland County, we want to do this, we still have the last right to veto that if it doesn't suit our needs.
The wording to that, and this came up a few years back under the Calgary Regional when we were struggling with that same question. There has to be a clear I can't even think of the words, but for the municipality that they're talking about, there has to be a clear
Structure?
benefit. Thank you. There has to be a benefit to that. You can't just vote against it simply because you're voting against it. But if there's no clear benefit to the municipality, they have a right to veto that until there is a clear benefit.
Or if there's a detriment to the municipality, right?
Verse.
That's right.
Yeah. So if if the Calgary Board says they want to put some, whatever it is, let's say a landfill in Wheatland County, I don't know if that would ever happen, but let's say they did, and the county could prove that that's a detriment, there should be a right for the county to say no. Just the same as Calgary, we can't say, well, keep your damn garbage in your place, because they got 2/3 vote, they're going to say, no, we're going to ship it out to you. Same as what Edmonton's done.
For that double majority or whatever they call it that she's talking about here, if I read the whole article plan properly, there's only certain things where they can put that in. It has to be a regional issue, and there's only 4 or 5 clear regional mandates where they can implement that. Otherwise, the other, what she's saying in here really does fall in, that you do have, they won't come after you for certain things. There's only if it's a clear regional issue, and that's where they have their veto on it. You have to be careful how, because they'll come back and say, well, we're already doing that. There is places where that's happening, but on those 3 or 4 specifics, you don't have a choice.
Yeah, we don't have a choice what's regional either.
It has to be proven that it's regional, though. They have
Yeah.
to prove it's regional, and if it's regional, then there has to be benefit to the municipality that it's affecting, or it's not regional. That's
Not a
right.
detriment.
Or it's not regional, right?
I think the problem with that, Ben, is who's going to decide if it's regional or not, if it goes to a vote? Yeah, it's regional, and then it'll fall into place. I know when Wheatland County wasn't part of it, the mediated settlement with Foothills included a veto vote for detrimental effect. And when the province come down and said, you're all in this together now, and they took it out. The province took it out. Rocky View wanted a different method of calculating the rurals, having a majority of the rural vote, I think was their position, and we kind of flew an idea, maybe instead of 2/3 of land, of people, it should be 80% of the municipalities instead of 2/3 of the municipalities. And that's all gone to the wayside. It's back to the 2/3, Calgary's original stance. This Calgary's getting all the power here, and yeah. So when our comments are, we have to make it clear that we're not in favor of the 2/3. We're not in favor of the mediated settlement that was before. We're in favor of that, the detrimental effect or a veto vote. But that's what we're here for, yeah. Sorry, Margaret.
Prior to the corridor, when we were arguing with them, we said, you've got the veto vote on population, we should have the veto vote, the rural should have it on landmass. Well, then when we cut it down to this little corridor, we no longer have that.
No.
So we're losing, we do lose on that.
Yeah. Okay, any other comment? Okay, Ellen.
Back to the letter that the county put together, point number 6, section 5, subsection 3, page 5. This section states that if a representative is not present for a vote of the board or abstains from voting, the representative is deemed to have vote in the affirmative. Given that a significant number of the matters the board discusses will not impact Wheatland County, this forces attendance by the county to every meeting regardless of whether we are affected or not, at a huge cost to the taxpayer. This is almost undemocratic and not a traditional voting structure for democratic governance models.
Go ahead.
So just so I have this correct, for an example, so if today I didn't show up and you guys had voted whether, I don't know, whether you wanted to be in the GMB, whether that was the decision, and I wasn't here and it was tied 3-3, it would now be 4-3, is that what it's saying? Even if I'm not here, if I'm not voting, whether I choose not to or I'm not there, that's in the affirmative.
That's correct. So that forces a representative from Wheatland County, or representatives from Wheatland County, usually the reeve or appointed from the council, and one administrative person to attend probably 40 to 50 meetings in the first year at a huge expense to the taxpayers, over and above all the other costs to be a member of this board with no visible benefit at this point to Wheatland County. Don't forget, the province can add any municipality they want at any time, and that's been suggested a number of times. Try it out with 7 or 8 members, and then expand if you need to expand it. If other members aren't following the rules, then expand it. But
In that comment, would we want to put an example? Like, if they're just talking about Cochrane at the meeting tomorrow, we would decide not to go. But the meeting tomorrow comes and they amend the agenda and saying we're going to be talking about Wheatland, and we wouldn't know that ahead of time. That would be a big reason why we'd want to be there. So it's the amendments to the agenda at the time of the meeting that I would be the most fearful of.
In that case, make, is there any legislation regarding the meetings themselves?
the
And have that
Municipal
in-
Government Act's quite clear when it comes to municipalities, and that's not the way it works in a municipality. So why should this be any different? The Municipal Government Act is a provincial document. Now there's changing the rules and saying, well, this is going to be different. You know, it just doesn't, it's not consistent. So all they need to do is be consistent. If members don't show up and there's 7 members there, out of the 10, they make the decision. The other 3 members don't swing the vote to say, yeah, because they're not here, they vote in the affirmative. I've never heard of that before in Canada.
It used to happen way back in the early days, because that's how the natives voted. If they packed up their tent and went home, it was a negative vote, and the British Parliament took it as a positive vote. That's how they got all this land from the natives. The natives packed up, went home because they didn't agree, and the ones that were left voted in favor. So is there a way, if they refuse and say that you have to be present, they send out the agendas beforehand? And like you said, if it doesn't affect Wheatland County, and there's no reason why you have to be there, and they're not discussing anything to do with Wheatland County or anything that's happening towards it, that should be part of the agenda that's sent out ahead of time. Yeah, but if there's nothing on the agenda that's stated that deals with that, and you phone in and say that we're not coming in because there's nothing in the agenda package that has anything to do with this, then if they're making up the rules, then make up your own rules, and then you can't add as an addition to the agenda if we don't show up. But if there's something on there that does deal with Wheatland County and you don't show up, then yes, you can vote whatever way you want. But at least you're working.
So in addition to this comment, what I would suggest is, in the case where a member is not present and an item cannot be added to the agenda that may affect that member.
Yeah.
Okay? Because otherwise, this is a
Go one
huge.
step further. I'd be tempted to go one step further. If that is the case, there'd be no amendments to the agenda.
Yeah, that's what I said too, no amendments.
No amendments, because you're not participating on what's in the agenda. If, that would be our second best thing, but I think our first thing would be no agenda amendments.
Well, okay, let me just ask you a question.
Okay.
So if there's 8 members there and 2 don't show up, then you're not going to be able to change the agenda ever? All 10 have to be, I think you have to be a little more reasonable. You have to have some flexibility there, because you're not going to always have, and I understand what you're saying, but I don't think I don't think that would fly, because that doesn't give them any ability to change the agenda. And sometimes you have to change the agenda, maybe you have to add something or whatever. As long as it doesn't affect that municipality that's not in attendance, I think that's the key. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I'm also, I keep thinking back to an old joke. My wife and me, I let her make all the big decisions, and I make all the small decisions. No, I make all the big decisions. My wife makes all the little decisions. And one other thing, she decides which are the big decisions and which are the little decisions. And I think we have to be worried about that when they're making amendments to the agenda and you're not there. Who decides if it's detrimental or not? You're not there. And somebody else has taken that decision away from you.
So on that, there's notification. There's process for notification of meetings, right? So there's a process for notification 2 weeks prior. If you don't have anything on that agenda, and then they decide to change it at the last minute, you may or may not think that it could affect your municipality, but it may. And until you see what those agenda items are, you may say that, well, we have a neighbor at the corner of, over at Rocky View, like it may affect Rocky View, but you know what? It might be sitting on our boundary line that says, well, it doesn't affect Wheatland, but it's on our boundaries. So that landfill that's going to be on our boundaries doesn't affect us, and they might put it on the agenda before, and we not be there. So I agree with, if you give prior notice, nothing could be added to the agenda no more than 1 week before or something to that effect. A change in a policy on how they set their agendas.
Okay. Go ahead, Angie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think a different lens on this is part of the reason I think they've put this in place is they want every member at every meeting for a reason. They don't want no one to not be there. They've kind of couched it in the voting rights to force that agenda. But what I have heard from some of the comments from Foothills and Rocky View is that they are hoping that Wheatland will be another rural voice at the table. So they would not want Wheatland not to be there if there's a rural issues coming up, even though if you felt it didn't affect you as Wheatland, but it affected Foothills or Rocky View, they would be looking for your support.
Mm-hmm.
I have heard that.
I've heard that too. Okay, Rex?
I feel that I think that's a very good point, and I get that we may not be on the agenda item, and we want to be notified if there's any changes to the agenda, should it affect Wheatland County, and I understand that there's a huge cost for us to be in it. But further to that comment, I think it's we could have a larger cost by not showing up. I think if we're going to be mandated to be there, then we better damn well be there. I think it would be cheaper in the long run if we just made every meeting rather than rely on whether we're going to be a part of that agenda or not. I think we just, we fight the way we're going against, trying to make the rules up as we go before we get started on this, and that's the best we can do. Beyond that, I think we just better be at the damn table.
Don?
I would think if there's an item on the agenda and a member hasn't been notified, that item will be tabled until they are.
You would hope.
Well, yeah.
I agree with, but you got to remember too that, I agree with what Alan's saying, there's going to be a cost. I also agree with Rex. It's also a way, if you have that option in there, it's also a way for you to hold up the process. If you have to be there for things like Angie said, it could affect Rocky View, and Rocky View wants our participation. So you can hold up, and they end up tabling it because so-and-so isn't here to do it. You could end up and make the process last longer, which in the long run, and like you said, ends up costing you more money. And yeah, it's a pain to have to go to 15, 20, 30 more meetings, but I think in the long run, plus the continuity of knowing what's happened at the last meeting prior to the next, all that comes in there. I don't like the idea, but I think Rex is right. I think we need.
The most expensive meeting will be the one that you don't make. It's kind of like going to jail for a murder you didn't commit.
Any other comments?
Through the
I'm
chair.
thinking maybe, oh, sorry,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I just wanted to note that there's a risk of being overly reliant on looking at the agenda as well and wondering whether it affects Wheatland or not. Because say they put Cochrane Regional Fieldhouse on the agenda, and we think it's not going to affect us at all, but then someone from Cochrane makes the claim that Wheatland County residents within this box are going to go utilize it, and they put us on the hook for 1/10 of the cost when they have no understanding that they actually go to the Strathmore or go to Calgary, that type of thing. I think there's just that risk where things that may seem so far removed to us because it's common sense for us, it may not be such common sense for someone else from a different municipality.
Yeah, I think maybe we should deal with the larger question. Yes, we're not happy we're in there. Yes, we're not happy with the size of it. But if we're in, like Rex has said, are we going to be in and be part of it? Or are we going to be in and still fighting? And I'm thinking I agree with Rex. If we're in, we attend and we show up. And if it's for us, not every meeting's for you. Not every meeting we have here is for every councillor. But we rely on that councillor's input for the greater good. So I'm thinking for me too, if we're in, we're in. We'll diggle about the voting structure and the size of it. I think that's fair game, but for the agenda, the voting yes and stuff, if it's a storm and we phone in says we can't make it, I would hope if you're always attending, they would show a little lenience that way, but maybe I'll say we're in, and we'll attend. Ellen?
Yeah, so back to comment number 6, which doesn't talk anything about that. It's just about if you're not there, it votes in an affirmative. Is council supportive of that comment? That we don't
Not
like that
support
idea?
of it, but I wouldn't give any other options either. Yeah, we're not there for unforeseen circumstances.
Because what it's
The capital region uses that as a way out for Edmonton, say they should be voting no. It's a bad thing for Edmonton, but for the greater good, he'll get up and have a cup of coffee or something and, oh, he just voted yes, but he didn't actually vote. So it doesn't put a mark on him. It, to me, is a scapegoat, an easy way out for Edmonton or Calgary to end up voting yes when.
Because in reality, we basically operate the same way. We're missing 2 councillors today, but if we do a motion today, we're assuming they're voting in the affirmative. If we assume they vote in the negative, the motion won't go.
No.
Right?
No, because then they would be a tie-breaking vote, not sitting at the table.
The way the votes would work is if this was the growth management board and 2 were missing and there was 3 people voted for, it would show as 5 voted for. We don't do that in our minutes. It just shows them not being here. They don't have a vote.
It's a tie vote, right?
Right? So it's way different. This is not the same thing. So can I read this, the number 5,
We could lose the vote here 3-2, but it would deem to be 5-2, right? Or 5-3, or 4-3, right? Okay.
Let me read this again because we've talked about a lot of great things, but this is the comment that we're suggesting to make is section 5, subsection 3, page 5. This section states that if a representative is not present for a vote of the board or abstains from voting, the representative is deemed to have voted in the affirmative. Given that a significant number of the matters the board discusses will not impact Wheatland County, this forces attendance by the county to every meeting regardless of whether we are affected at a huge cost to the taxpayer. This also is undemocratic and not a traditional voting structure for democratic governance models.
Any comments?
Yeah.
The ask is have it removed.
Yes.
Well, I think you need to. That would be. That comment.
Didn't add anything on that. She felt that our comment was sufficient and dealt with that. and basically a traditional voting structure, the same as any other elected body would have.
Well, I got another question. It might be a little off base, but I have two issues with that. One is, if you're not present for the vote, that's one thing. But if you abstain from voting, if you're at the meeting and you abstain from voting, I can't, you argue your points, and if it comes to a vote, you vote one way or the other. If you're not in favor of it, you vote against it. I don't like the fact of the option of abstaining from the vote.
Yeah, I don't believe there is an option of abstaining from the vote.
It says it right here. Oh, it says, or abstains from voting. That means you're at the meeting and you're not voting.
Yeah, but that's not saying you have the option to do it. It's saying that you chose to abstain from
That's what I'm saying.
So
You
what,
shouldn't-
what Glenn said happened in Edmonton, it's happened once or twice, is politically,
Yeah, you,
Edmonton, it's all politics, wanted to support a matter, but they didn't want to show that their vote was in support of the matter. So he went outside for a long extended coffee break. The vote happened, then he came back in.
but that's not abstaining from the vote.
Well, it is in a way.
That's not being in the room when abstaining is, you're sitting
Sitting
there
at
and
the
you're
chair.
declaring you're not voting on this. and you
So
don't have
we'll take
that.
the word abstain out. That's a good point, yeah.
Okay.
That's, you take it.
Okay, we'll have a short break, sure. Call the meeting back to order, then I'll ask, is there everybody okay with number 6 with our response? Okay, we'll move on to number 7 then.
So point number 7 in the letter that we provided, section 6A, page 5, this section notes that the board may develop policies allowing for the participation of non-members. County sees the purpose of this in regards to smaller municipalities that do not fit membership criteria, for example, Turner Valley and Black Diamond. However, this wording is not specific and defined enough. The definition should be amended to limit the inclusion to geographic area and not to municipalities only. The vagueness of this wording can potentially open the door for special interest groups, developers, and other entities with their own agenda to have involvement.
Any comment?
Okay, the next
Seeing
point.
any, move on.
Point number 8, section 6B, page 5, this section states that the board may requisition participating municipalities for operating costs related to the operations of the board. Once again, will these costs be proportionate to benefit for the various municipalities within the board? Will Wheatland County be on the hook for significant costs that do not impact or benefit the county? And then additionally, Joanne's comment under point 10 should be added there. How are the costs to be allocated between the participating municipalities?
Any comments?
Operating costs related to the board. Well, what are they looking at anticipated costs for operating the board? Because each municipality covers,
Right now, they got $5 million,
They get $3 million from the
$3
province of
million.
Alberta.
board?
yeah, for the Calgary management, or Calgary Regional, whatever they call it, CMP.
Calgary Regional Partnerships
Calgary
gets $3 million and the
Metropolitan.
Capital Region Board gets $3 million. So the plan that the government has suggested is within 5 years, they want to be down to zero. And it'll be totally funded by the benefiting municipalities that are forced into this. Sorry, forced is the wrong word. Put into this by the province of Alberta.
Calgary, I know Calgary gets that, and Evan gets, and that's for the Calgary Regional Partnership?
Yep.
You're
Correct.
talking about?
So that's all
Well,
we can use as an
So
example.
Then throw it right back at them. If they paid their full share like all the other municipalities, they wouldn't need that. They don't pay a full share into that CRP.
From my understanding, they haven't paid anything into that except for specific projects. The operation of the board has been totally paid by the grant from the province of Alberta.
There's other projects inside it.
There's other projects inside of the Calgary and that
When
have
you
put
pay
money
your
into.
per capita, what do we pay on a per capita to the CRP? That was,
We haven't, we
paid-
participated in
was
some
50
GIS 100
50
years ago.
cents, wasn't it?
I couldn't answer that question. I don't know. That's been long before.
Years
my-
ago, when it first started, we were in part of, was it mapping or something?
Yeah,
And I think we paid our staff too, and that was our
but we
contribution.
paid a membership to the CRP.
Yeah, but the CRP is gone now. It's the CMP, and the province was putting in this 3 million for the operation of the board.
Okay.
Okay, so
So we
part
don't-
of the board, there's other, they were doing transit studies and they're doing whatever they're doing, right? And that's funded differently.
So there's no membership fee to this growth management?
I don't think so.
We don't know because it hasn't been established by the board yet, because the board hasn't met yet.
But currently, I don't think there's a membership fee for the CMP, not that I know of.
The CMP is a plan. You're talking about the
Yeah.
CRP? or
CRP.
This is not the CRP, though. This is totally different.
right.
So this opens this whole thing up again.
That's right.
All I can suggest to you is when they talked about doing an interim plan, is they said, let's share the cost equally. And that's the fear that I would have, is that they would say, okay, the operation of the board is whatever it is, $2 million or $1.5 million. Wheatland County shares $150,000. That's the fear. So we need to put that in here to say it should be by population. That's probably the fairest. Because Calgary will still have to put the most in, but they benefit the most too, right? Because they have the veto vote.
But that's what I'm saying, when you put it in there, and if it's by population, then the board decides what the cost will be by population, but there will be no cap on that population either. So the bigger, because Calgary will, if they put that in there, Calgary will put a cap on it. They've done it forever. They do it for all of this. They cap it, so they only pay a certain percent. The little ones pay the full cost, and the big ones cap it.
Go ahead, Brenda.
So my choice of wording would be, instead of proportionate, put it on per capita and put that in there. So, and that was what I would say,
No cap.
with per capita period for every municipality with no cap, if that's what you want, then. So that would make that Calgary has the most population, so they'd put in based upon their population, and there
So
would
the-
be no cap.
So the comment would be, again, back to point 8 in the letter, this section states that the board may requisition participating municipalities for operating costs related to the operation of the board. Once again, will these costs be per capita to the benefit for the various municipalities within the board?
Yeah, and we'll add ends in there with no.
Must be. Once again, these must be. Okay. We don't have the say, but we can actually, we can tell them what we think. We don't have the say, as you know, but, okay, so then it'll say, once again, these costs must be per capita to benefit, for the benefit for the various municipalities within the board.
Danny? Use the mic, so you're going to be recorded. Push it again. Yeah, there you go.
Through the chair, did you want to put the whole population of Wheatland County in there, or just the corridor?
Just the
Maybe
corridor.
that should be mentioned in there, that you're just looking at
Again.
the people in the corridor and not the people in Wheatland County.
We can mention that again, good point. Because we've already mentioned it, population in the corridor, but if we mention again, it
Right.
reinforces it. A good point. In one of the workshops I was at, the provincial rep was there, And they mentioned the board can requisition because they don't want to make all the rules. They want the board to make up the rules. And that's what we're fearful of, the board making up the rules. Okay, any other comments? Okay, continue on, Ellen, please.
The only,
Go ahead.
through the chair, the only concern I have with the per capita, and I guess it could still be the same concern with the proportion, is then that opens up a potential argument that they can argue then the votes are worth more based per capita when it's one municipality, one vote. But I think that argument's already been lost, so I don't see major issues.
Yeah.
Though, like this is maybe the operations of this board, right? So cost-wise, it makes a difference, especially for the smaller municipalities, right?
Oh, through the chair, I completely agree with that. I'm just saying how I can see them trying to utilize that argument with the cost.
So that your suggestion might be that, based upon the fact that they'll use the voting structure against the cost, is what you're suggesting, as a balancing point. However, that being said, even if they did that, their tax base is a considerable larger amount than us. So for us to be expected to pay for a tax base out of our tax base that we don't have versus theirs, and they're the majority of the beneficiaries of the regional growth plan, it's probably our only, how do I say this without being, it's probably our only win. Does that make sense on the costs? Because I don't think we're going to win on the voting. And so I would rather, and the other thing is for me, it's about the cost as well, right? So I think we try to get what we can that's going to benefit us. I don't think we're going to have that vote, but we can ask.
It's an interesting point. Would Wheatland County prepared to put 1/10 of the cost in if we got a meaningful vote? By a meaningful vote, I mean a veto vote or a vote that makes a difference like Calgary has. A vote that the rural municipalities has to be a majority of, or 85 or 90% of the municipalities have to agree to. I mean, a meaningful vote where we could make a difference. Would we be willing to pay 1/10 of the cost?
Be careful what you ask for, because we, as a municipality, we are not in it totally. We are only in it as a corridor. So if you ask for too much, you may end up in it totally.
Yeah, but that's the question. That's the question Colton is posing.
Yeah.
And I think it deserves a little bit of a discussion. Would we be willing, no matter if it's, what's the difference? 1,500 or 8,500, it's still, the cost is 1/10, right? It doesn't matter how many people we have in it or how big our area is in it. It's one vote. Angie?
Through the chair, I think something that we need to remember is we've been mandated to be part of the Growth Management Board. We are a portion of the county, and we are the only municipality that is a portion of the county. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to work very hard to make sure that everybody there realizes that we are as important as them. Our vote is as important as them. Our corridor is very important to us. So I wouldn't want us to do anything that diminishes our presence at the table. Mm-hmm. That's something that's going around in my mind right now.
Yeah, I understand that. Any other comments or?
I think the cost, because not only the cost, we're talking operational costs. That's all we're talking. We're not talking costs above that, because it's going to cost our own staff, our own time, and everybody. It's costing our county more than what's there. So I think, from a taxpayer's perspective, I guess, we want to go with the least amount of cost that we can. Because it's going to actually cost us beyond that. Not just the operations of that, so. Like I said, I think we take what we can, where we can.
Well, having said that, Brenda, when we do something in the county, we buy a scraper, we buy a cat. That's an expensive scraper. We don't, for the interest of cost, buy a little horse-drawn carriage. We don't do that anymore. We look at the benefit of the scraper. What is the benefit of our vote? Right now, it's not much. I agree, we'll pay a portion of the cost. But there's a fear been stated that if we're only argued to pay a portion, that's going to diminish our vote, our presence in the view of everybody else. Are we going in there kicking and screaming and crying? Yeah, that's one thing. But when we're there, we want to be looked at as an important contribution. And that's the same reason why we want to have our full vote. I think, yeah, it's nice to keep the costs down and we can control that with staff somewhat, but the overhead, we won't be able to control that. We'll only have a 1/10 of a say in it. And if we're an equal say in all matters, take the population veto out and have a 1/10 vote, pay 1/10 of the costs. I think that would, I'm thinking, would, in the long term, it's no different than Rex said, the meeting you miss is the most costly. The one you can't vote at is the most costly. It costs money to do business. We don't want to be in there. That'd be the most effective thing for our ratepayers, not even to be in. But if you're in it, you have to play the game. And I'm thinking, if we could trade it somehow to get 1/10 of the vote, pay 1/10 of the cost, that would be fair. I don't know if it would happen though. It'll be both ends of the thing. We'll get 1/10 of the cost and no vote.
So through the chair, the other thing we got to remember too is we're not the only rural that's involved
Yeah.
in this. And if it looks to the other rurals like we're getting benefits they're not getting, we're going to lose their support and we're going to be out here flopping all by ourselves because the other rurals will soon say, why are they getting that extra benefit? So, yeah.
Well, aren't we making this comment to be equal across the board? Like, I don't.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. When they come to requisition us, the board, the big push is going to be 1/10 of the cost. Because that's what Calgary's going to push for. Because that's going to effectively be how they're going to manage the cost for their ratepayers. We're only paying 1/10, right? And they'll have to argue like that. No different than we want to argue. We only want to pay a 1,000th of the cost because we just have a few people. Okay? So if you allow Calgary to argue like that, then we're not going to win it. But in the same sense, if we say we're paying 1/10 of the cost, we want to be 1/10 of the membership here, right? We want to have 1/10 of the vote. I think it would be a more effective argument for us in the long run, saying we're paying for this. We want to be an effective member. We don't want to be just here to pay. I think that deserves a little more thought. Brenda?
So based upon the voting, it's an affirmative vote or whatever based upon 2/3 of the region's population, right? That's
What
they're
it is
looking at
now, yeah.
And that's what it is, and they're still continuing with that. So based upon that, Calgary already has 2/3 of the population in it. And by putting that statement in, that makes it that Calgary already has that. So I think if you're based it upon paying for the operating costs, and they already have, it has to be 2/3 of the region I can find that, I guess, 2/3 of the region that vote, then for an affirmative. I don't see the cost being an issue, I guess. Because if you pay per capita, like Ben said, it's the operating. And a per capita is based on what your population is. And regardless of whether we have a small population that's in or not in, and you know what, there's also the option that eventually our areas could change as well, right? We could increase further out or increase everything further if it seems to be, if it's going to benefit our county residents, right?
Ben?
So the question then, I look at this, that it's the requisitioning the participating municipalities for the operating costs to the operation of the board. That's got nothing to do with the services supplied
No.
in the system, because they will come after us for some of those costs for those services also. And if we don't have full voting privileges at the board, we're going to lose out on that side also, because they will come after us for service costs. That's where our big cost is going to come, if we have to pay a full share of services that we have no benefit for.
So explain to
So
me
this
why
is strictly
we
the
don't have
board.
vote. Why is our vote any different than anybody else's? Like, when we.
No, I'm not talking about, I'm saying we're in there, we're sitting at the board, we've got a vote, and they're gonna bill us for the operating costs of the board. And like Glenn says, you pay for your portion. If you're there, you pay, right? The board costs aren't I'm not too concerned about the board costs. My concern is how they're gonna pass the costs on for the services that come out of this whole process down the road.
That would sort of suggest. That to me would suggest that that also has to do with the operation of the boards. If it's $3 million, and you're right, how many's on total again? Lost numbers. And you divide it, right? But I guess if it's just for, it's the whole plan. Is it for the board you see, that's what I mean. It's not specific. It's for the entire 3.5 million, you said, was the money they got from the government? So, yeah.
I agree. If we don't have a meaningful vote, the way it's watered down now, yeah, we'll be overpaying. But take the 2/3 out. It's 2/3 of the population, it's 2/3 of the municipality. Make it a same vote in here, a majority vote. Then it would make sense to pay our share, the 1/10. But if it's watered down our vote, then our payment should be watered down in accordance. I think that's a good argument. Either way. I don't know if we want to tie the two together, or how can you do it? Is there how do we present that to them? Angie?
Through the chair, again, I think we need to think long-term and also think, what is the benefit to Wheatland County of, we're in the plan, there's no ifs and buts about it. We need to look at the portion of our plan area. Our corridor is in there. If we think strategically, then we need to be at the table and stating, maybe we want our corridor area to be fully serviced, because then you've got a lot more opportunity to get good development in there. And also, with that plan area, do you have that map? Wheatland County effectively controls the eastern edge of this entire regional plan now, which is a big statement, because it's not Rocky View controlling it, it is Wheatland County in collaboration with Strathmore. This is a main highway going through here, and it, of course, will get busier. So we do have, if we're careful and we use our strategic senses carefully, this could be extremely beneficial for Wheatland County. So the last thing we want is to diminish ourselves at the table. And it may sound like a lot of cost in the beginning for operating costs, et cetera, but if we play our cards right, we could actually do very well out of this, controlling that eastern edge of this entire regional plan area. And they could say, Wheatland, you're doing so well, we want to expand that area. And yes, I know, Councillor Knight, that's not what you want, but there's pros and cons to that, right? So we need to think longer term and say, maybe it should go a little bit further north and maybe a little bit further south, because we know we've got a lot starting to happen down in the Carsland area. And then you have full control of that eastern edge.
How do you word it? Any more comments on the concept? concept, pay and be part of for the future.
I think it fundamentally comes back to what we've said with point 8. Is it proportionate, as we've stated? Or is it per capita that you're looking for? So if you do it per capita, the board, let's say the board operating costs are
Yeah.
$1.5 million a year. Per capita, it's going to be about $1,400 to the county a year. Proportionate would be $150,000. I don't know what the right answer is, but maybe, like Angie said, maybe you need to do the upfront cost of $150,000 to get the full benefit. That's why you would want to stick with proportionate rather than go per capita.
I guess it boils down to being attending the meetings or not attending the meetings. It's the same question. You're part of or you're not part of. Interesting. Any other comments? Want to be part of the thing, or we don't want to be part of it, but if we're in it, are we going to be in it? I think that's the question.
So the question would be, are they
If you want a full say at the board, you got to pay your full share.
And then again, the province has said they won't, that's a board decision how you do it. So that, right now, we have a chance, we can get the province to say it's going to be proportionate or share, or whatever. But is that what we want to do?
asking? I guess what is there, I guess, once again, will these go?
We don't know because the board hasn't decided yet.
If you go to page 5 of the regulation, 6B states that requisition participating municipalities for operating costs related to the operations of the board. And on the side in orange, they say the government of Alberta will provide funding to support the board's operations, but costs are intended to be shared to reflect the shared benefit of the board. It's not written in the regulation, it's just a footnote on the side.
Yeah.
So that's another way to approach it. Cost to be shared to reflect the shared benefit of the board, which would be a form of proportionate share, proportionate based on your benefit.
And the more benefit we get, the higher our share.
Now that begs the question of how big an argument you have to do to the other members, the other 9, to convince them that, you know, that's really not a benefit to us. Which all 9 of the other members have stated, including the city of Calgary, that they don't believe Wheatland County should be in. So they realize at this point, there's a very limited benefit to this board to Wheatland County. 5 years or 10 years down the road, that might change.
If you're a full voting member of that board, they will make sure you pay your full share.
So would we say that we would agree with that footnote on the side of that regulation and use that as in part of our comments?
Well, let me read it one more time. Government of Alberta will provide funding to support the board's operation, but costs are intended to be shared to reflect the shared benefit of the board. So proportionate, you could say proportionate based on the benefit to the municipality, or something to that effect.
To me, that comment is fluid. As the benefits change, your costs, your share will change, which would be fair.
So I mean, ideally, I guess, the way I would see it is that you start out at $1,400
Yeah.
the per capita. And in 5 years, if there's a benefit to Wheatland County where we can get servicing from Calgary or from that region, then maybe it is $150,000.
Yeah.
And it becomes, like you say, fluid. Whether that'll happen in reality or not, I guess no one, who knows? You can only conjecture on that. But everybody around that table, and you've been there, Glenn, when the elected officials have spoken, recognizes the fact that Wheatland County has very little benefit to this, if any, at this point.
Yeah, and being there, I'm thinking that point, that footnote would be a lot easier to sell to the other 9 than, I'm thinking we would gain a little traction there and save a little money, but in the big scheme of things, the money we save by being in there, I think I would agree with that footnote.
So we would add in that costs are intended to be shared to reflect the shared benefit of the board.
I think so.
And do you want to take reference to per capita out and just leave it as proportionate the way it is now with that added comment in there?
I say to the benefit.
And take out proportionate and per capita and just put to the benefit.
What's your feelings? Just proportionate, the way the footnote is?
I think so. I think that's, for now, I think that's probably the most relevant to us being a part of that board. I think that statement probably, rather than going after a population or a proportionate.
Okay, so I'll read the point 8 the way I would suspect that I'm hearing you guys maybe want to have it written. Section B, page 5. This section states that the board may requisition participating municipalities for operating costs related to the operations of the board. Once again, will these costs be shared to reflect the shared benefit of the board to the various members within the board? That make sense?
That makes sense to everyone?
And then the last comment, will Wheatland County be on the hook for significant, we just leave that one in there,
Yeah.
but we'll just revise the other one. Did you get that?
Just leave it out. Okay with everyone? Okay. Okay, move on. Number 9. What's that, Don?
I don't know if you've heard how the other 9 are going to be participating, but we don't want to hurt our influence with them. We got to keep them on our side, so we got to be moving fair to them too, once we hear how they're feeling.
I think we've already stated that if we're in, we're going to be in, and we're going to participate just like every counselor participates at this table. So if you keep thinking of that as our goal, our mission statement, then this falls in line with it. We'll participate as we do. We're not going to pay our money to make friends or anything. We're in there for Wheatland County's benefit. And as we gain a benefit out of it, we'll pay our share of it. And I'm thinking by doing that, we'll gain the trust of all the other municipalities, because we're in there for the greater good. And we believe that who is receiving the services, when it comes to servicing, that the ones who receive the services pay for the services, and the ones that are receiving the benefit from this board will pay for the board. I think that's an easier thing to sell, even though the pill is a little bit bitter, but I think in the end, it'll bode us well in conversations. I don't know, is that wrong, or anybody else have anything else to say? Okay, move on to number 9 then.
Okay, point number 9, this is on Joanne's comments now. No, it's not point number 9. Section 7, subsection 1, page 5. This section states that the board shall, within 3 years from the coming into force of this regulation, prepare and submit to the minister a proposed Calgary Metropolitan Growth Plan. How does the county complete ICFs, IDPs within the time frame when there will be a wait until the final plan is completed? It is challenging for the county to determine on a county level how to expend resources and address servicing when there are unknowns until the growth plan is completed.
Well, in your comments, in our letter here, where it says that the minister said that within 3 years that this board has to submit a proposed Calgary Metropolitan Region Growth Plan. There's already one out there. They've put a lot of money into it. The Calgary Metropolitan Plan, and they will push that to the table because it's already there, and they might make some changes to it. But I think that's, in the long run, that's the document you're going to be going. You're not going to create a new document. You are going to be working with the document that's already, no?
No, the minister has stated they don't want the Calgary Metropolitan Plan. There was not sufficient input from the rural municipalities in that plan. They want a new one developed. Now, in developing the new one, and it happens to be the Calgary Metropolitan Plan, they didn't say that couldn't happen, but the minister says you're not going to take that plan and call it. The rurals are in. Pay heed to them. What it turns out, that's what we're sitting here for today, to establish the ground rules, how we get along together. Yeah.
So you're both right on 100% on the money. So what's happening right now is there is this grant that was received, $320,000. We're waiting for the information so we can provide it to council to develop an interim growth plan. They're taking the CMP and will modify that to include the rural perspective. So basically what you both said melded together so that they can have an interim growth plan to keep municipalities that continue to grow, such as Airdrie and Calgary and Cochrane, and that keep going, because they can't do anything. Once this regulation comes into force, if it comes into force January 1, they got to be very careful what they approve, because if they approve something and it doesn't line up with the plan that doesn't exist yet, they got a problem, right? So it pretty much puts a hiatus on some of that development in those areas until this plan is formed. So that's why they're in a rush to get an interim plan adopted. Ultimately, the plan will look a lot different than the CMP. If you look at the Capital Region Board plan, and I've gone through it, it's considerably different than what their original plan was. And they spent millions of dollars on that one to develop that. So there will be, I believe, a final plan within 3 years or whatever, 4 years, whatever it takes, that'll look different than the CMP. It'll have components of the CMP, there's no doubt about it, but it'll look considerably different. So it's a combination of things that's going to take place. I guess our statement, or the statement that's being made here, is that how can we do ICFs and IDPs with Rocky View as an example when we don't have the plan approved? And we need to get those ICFs and IDPs completed within 2 years. This plan doesn't need to be done for 3 years. So their timelines don't line up at all. So my feeling is you don't even expend resources on that. You work on the other ones that we can get completed, and you just let that one, we send letters to the government saying this can't happen. There's no way to complete a plan with a municipality that's getting locked into another plan until you know what the other plan says, right? It doesn't add up. Yeah. And even municipal affairs can't make sense of that, and so there has to be an exemption or consideration of that. And we're not the only one in that situation, right? Yeah. So. So that's that one.
That's what's meant there, yeah. Any comments?
Okay, so the next point will be point number 10 on Joanne's letter. Section 9, subsection 1A 2F, page 7. This section notes that the energy transmission corridors must be included within the final growth plan. Clarification on what is meant by energy transmission corridors would be beneficial for the county to better understand the exact ramifications of this section. So we're assuming it's power lines and gas line transmission systems, but we just want that clarified.
Any comment? Comment. Okay, next. Got a comment? No? Okay.
Well, I do in a sense. Growth plan. That's.
I would think so, yeah.
And that's what
The
they've done.
future growth is supposed to double in so many years, it's gonna take more energy to feed that thing.
And that's what they've done in the Highway 2 corridor. They've planned that utility corridor. Highway 1 has an unformalized type utility corridor.
Because I know that there was.
Oh, okay.
And they still have. All those meetings we went to, Dawn, just over the Wapiti Valley. So I guess my theory is that, yes, that's what I'm asking. Transmission lines are something that's land, like, you know, your windmills, landowner to landowner. So my theory is you have to have an agreement of a corridor somewhere between landowners. Suggested is the fact that the minister has put that in, that the transmission lines have to be on there. I would think that that would be the company's. I'm asking, I guess, like, how do they determine where transmission?
Through the chair, there's also questions as to the AUC's role in this, because there's a very specific engagement process and protocol for how these transmission lines are planned. I went through it with a previous position I had. So that's kind of where my concerns are raised, or how are we integrating the AUC's process and making sure there's still that accountability for them within this plan.
Those comments should be added, because that's what I'm saying. When we had that, we had a lot of issues with people on the county side and Rocky View side, right down those transmission lines. Dawn and I both attended meetings by this, and my thing is, how does the minister automatically assume that the Calgary region are going to put in that process out there?
Angie?
Through the chair, absolutely, and I think this comes back to the concern about not emphasizing the public and stakeholder consultation piece, particularly on the interim plan. So they've told us they want the interim plan completed by next June, which is really, really tight deadlines and a lot of work. And this is where they intimated to myself and Alan at the last meeting that they didn't believe there was going to be either a necessity or time for a lot of public consultation on that interim plan.
Okay. Hello? Yeah.
I'll just get going to bring the snowblower.
I think,
Ride in the snowblower.
yeah,
Actually, I should text him and tell him
I
to
think
get
they're
snowblower.
talking close in one now. Even though Okay, sorry for that. We continue on.
So I'll just continue on that. So on section 9 in the rules, it gives a number of different regulations and it talks about energy transmission. Part of our concern is just having a clearer definition of what energy transmission includes now and in the future with technology changing, et cetera. So we don't know what that looks like yet. And also making sure that, you know, that public consultation and engagement is really critical. Even if it doesn't happen fully in the interim plan, it must happen fully working on the final growth plan. Partly because you're talking about people's land, but also to make sure that for the future, these corridors are in the right place and are not detrimental, particularly along our plan area because of Highway 1 and where those energy transmission lines are currently crisscrossing around Alberta.
Okay. Go ahead, Ben.
Maybe just a stupid comment, but the only place we can guarantee corridor is on a road allowance. Can't guarantee it anywhere else other than a road allowance. And that we can do. Well, no,
I guess-
sorry, Brenda, but just like Rex says, how do you do that? Well, you take a look at your map and you look at the least used and you designate that as a corridor. We don't build roads in there. We don't do anything there. That's dead.
And that being said, something like Glenmore Trail, if you go in on Glenmore Trail, all their lines do actually run down the side of Glenmore Trail. So if Glenmore Trail was to expand and become a 4-lane all the way out, after they go through Weed Lake there, that'll be a good rebuild. But if it actually did come out here, that corridor, although it would be on the north side of Langdon, but if you actually did run it out there and widen that road 4 lanes, that could be a corridor. And I also think possibly, no, I'm not even going to say it, but McKnight would be your other one. But there's too much development right now on that.
Any other comment? I'm thinking like the last, I forget which section it was, the one that made comment on reflecting on our prior comments on representation. Same thing here. We could say with due process. I think that would say it. Public consultation, everything else. Like there already are some corridors like Glenmore, and that's because the big substation at Langdon. I mean, it makes sense, right? But there should be due process in choosing corridors. Public compensation, same as we stated previously in the document, public hearings. We restate it again and it just reinforces. Is there any other comment to that then, or? Andy?
I think my only additional comment with the transmission corridors is we need to make sure that, because I have a feeling that because all of Rocky View's east side is within the plan and only our little section is within there, there's going to be those corridors pushing through from Rocky View. And is that detrimental to our farmland on our western border of Wheatland County? So that's where in my mind I'm thinking we need to be a little bit careful as to we have that public consultation for those landowners along that western edge to make sure we know what's coming through and how that will affect their ability to farm, et cetera, in the future.
Mm-hmm. Any other comment? Margaret? Due process? Okay, public consultation is, to me, is the same thing. Due process is maybe more meaningful because we have a process now. If you just put public consultation, they might just ask for a letter, right? But due process, we have a defined process to do. I would prefer due process. Yeah, I think, if that makes sense. Any other thoughts? Don?
Your lines will go where the need is. 20 years ago, it was Valpole, and that was our first three-phase line that came in. Since then, we've had the tank farm, 2 elevators that require big power. Yeah, and feedlots, they require 3-phase power. So that's a corridor already. And it'll continue to grow because the power's there.
Yeah, where the need is. That's where it falls into planning. If you're going to identify an area where you're planning growth, you have to be able to service it too. Okay. Want to move on then? I think Angie, you can take over.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in the administration's letter we put together, so we're looking at section 11, section 9, number 11, section 9, subsection 1A on page 7. This section notes that policies regarding the planning for intermunicipal transit should be incorporated into the growth plan. The definition traditionally used and what has been used consistently is regional transit, as opposed to intermunicipal transit, which is what this should be amended to reflect for consistency purposes. So this is just a wording issue that administration had. They actually use both intermunicipal transit and regional transit within the rules. So I think they should just stick to one, and it should be regional transit.
Any concerns? Sounds okay, Angie.
Thank you. So now we're into part 3, number 12, section 10, page 7. This section states that the growth plan is of no effect to the extent it directs the government of Alberta to expend funds, to commit to funding arrangements, or to undertake particular actions or adopt particular policies or programs. As Wheatland County is being forced into this board against its will and will likely incur significant costs related to its membership, there is a concern about the lack of funding being provided by the province to undertake the level of planning work required for membership. Will future grants and other additional funding be available for municipalities that are members of this board?
Ben?
You'll probably get more grants by being a member than you will by not being a member.
Mr. Chairman, just to let you know, the Highway 1 is being closed from Bassano to Calgary. So
Okay.
if we can continue this, unless you want to go home now, the highway's going to be closed in the next half an hour. So I would suggest if you got to go on the highway, we probably want to wrap this up fairly soon, and we can get the letter
Okay.
put together, and I need you to stick around to sign it. But
Off, go home back road.
we are making provision to get the staff home as well.
Okay.
So probably with an escort to Strathmore, where the staff are. The people from Calgary and Okotoks, she might be spending the night.
Okay. Okay, thoughts? We continue.
To take out the second will. As Wheatland County is being forced into this board against its will and likely to incur, take out the second will.
And add a 2 then?
And add a 2. Because then either that or change the word will against its resistance or something. It just needs to be
know.
changed. There's too many wills together.
Sometimes when you get too many wills together, it makes a bigger impact, yeah?
Well, let's take out will and just say against its desire.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well, they better go home unless they want to go on highway. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you for your interest. Yeah.
So the next one would be point number 11 in Joanne's comments. I'm not going to read them if that's okay, unless you want me to. In addition to point number 13 of our comments, those both would be merged together and become the same comment. Comment number 19.
Any
Okay.
questions? Don? You're going home? Okay. Drive safe. Drive safe.
Okay, next one would be point number 12, made by Joanne Clower. Okay, next one would be point number 13 by Joanne Clower.
Any problem with number 12? Is that what I'm hearing? Nothing? Number 13?
And then number 13, on Joanne's comments, municipalities shall have a right to be heard by the board.
Any problems? Okay.
And then,
Brenda?
Just on Joanne's comment, she writes in there, be heard by the board, statutory plans are to be adopted and a public hearing. I'm gathering that, the two different processes on that, a public consultation and a public hearing.
well, that's what the MGA requires us to do. So this should follow the same rules, should it not? They're saying it shouldn't have to follow the same rules, which we totally disagree with.
Okay, no, I'm just noticing that there was two processes to that.
It's one process, public consultation and a public hearing. That's all part of that process. In the Municipal Government Act, you're required to advertise, do public hearings, the whole thing, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next.
Point number 14 on the county's letter. Section 14.1, page 9, that would be the next comment we would make.
Any common problems with that comment? Okay, next.
Point number 14 on Joanne Clower's comment, Schedule A, there should be a map clearly showing the portions of the county affected by the regulation.
I guess.
And then the next one would be point 15 under Joanne's comments, as well as coincidentally, point 15 under our comments, speak to the same thing, so we would amalgamate those both into one comment. Bit of a contradiction in the new modernized MGA. It talks about the requirement that all plans meet with the growth plan, but there's an exemption made in the regulation saying that they don't have to. So there needs to be clarification made on that, because I interpret it one way and other people interpret it a different way. It's not written quite right. So that's essentially what we're saying there, so.
Yeah. Comments? 16.
Number 16 on our letter would be next, section 70818. That's pretty clear, straightforward.
Okay. 16? That's the last one. No, there's one more. Oh, is there one more?
Joanne's comment 16 would be
yeah.
the last one, actually.
Okay. Is there any problem with 16? No? Then Joanne's comment.
And that essentially speaks to the appeal mechanism, which there is no appeal mechanism, which, again, doesn't speak very well of in relation to other appeal mechanisms that the MGA has put into place. such as 690 appeals and things like that. Those are no longer an option, from what I understand in this new regulation.
Yeah, that's fair. Go ahead.
I had a thought after. I thought an afterthought with regards to the fact of our agricultural land and that we want to reduce the corridor. Also, it would be a note that we have already, I don't know whether you would like to include it, but the growth for within, the municipality within, is already allotted for land base for 50-year. Like, you guys are, we already, town of Strathmore has enough build out for 50 years. So we have that partnerships there already. So that statement, along with the fact that we are trying to maintain our farmland, might be of interest, or could be used in that sentence. Because they do have enough build out for 50 years. So if they're thinking, well, we may have to look at, you know, the town of Strathmore and they're increasing their area within this division, I think that's a statement that the minister and everybody needs to know going in, that they're set up within that growth area. I don't know whether that would help us or not, but it's a comment to state the reason why we'd like to keep our agriculture, land agriculture. Right? Another add-on to that. What's your thought?
Your
So
choice.
the only other comment I would suggest at the end, it's not reflected in here anywhere, I guess, is we could put the comment in there that, again, Wheatland County reiterates that they do not feel that they should be in the growth management regulation.
Yeah. I just put it in again.
We don't have to, but I still think it should be put in there, that they know our position quite clearly. I've stated it many times, and you guys have stated it many times, but it doesn't hurt to put it in there one more time.
At this time. At this time. That's not that we
No,
can't.
no, don't put a proviso,
No.
we'll come in later when we see a benefit, just say no.
Yeah.
Well, we've been trying to say that. That's what I said. Why can't we be a non-member participating municipality?
I would maybe expand the comment as per all the other comments from the other municipalities have made, that they don't see any benefit for Wheatland County either.
We reaffirm what the
What the group has said, yeah.
We reaffirm what Calgary, Rocky View, and all the municipalities in there that have said, it's just there, the Wheatland County, there is no reason for
Yeah.
Wheatland County.
So basically a statement saying that we reaffirm our position that we do not feel we should be in, as well as all of the other members that are currently in the board have reaffirmed,
Yeah.
something to that effect.
Reaffirmed our position, yeah.
Don't speak to the future, because if you say in the future, because it's like anything else, if you decide in 6 years that there's a benefit for it, and you want to come in, it's going to cost you $2 million just to walk through the door.
Yeah, but it's costing you $20 million for water pipeline or $52 million.
You're going to pay for it anyway.
It'll come out.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would like council to entertain a motion to have us draft that letter up, get it signed and sent out, and we'll get a copy sent to all the councillors. It needs to be provided to the minister today by 4:30.
Okay. Brenda?
I will move that staff complete the changes to the letter and send it out to council and to forward it on to the minister as of today with signatures attached on accordingly. Is that good?
I would think.
Okay. Is that all you need, Marty?
Any question? All in favor? Oh,
That was gonna make a comment, no? Okay, sorry. I'm just catching it.
all in favor?
Sorry.
Next motion is yours, Rex.
Adjourn?
To do it now, Ben, go for it. Beat him
I
on it.
adjourn, I prove I was here.
I was just being smart.
Okay, adjourned.
What would be the odds of